Allison, thanks. Now to an update on a story that we brought you earlier in the week. A reckless driver who crashed into several cars and also injured 2 police officers in Springfield on Friday was back in court today for a dangerousness hearing.
Western Mass News reporter Madison Lisowski is live in studio with the latest details. Madison, is there new information on the incident?
Yeah, Abby and Chris, Jennifer Poulin is facing 21 separate counts for Friday's events, but apparently this is not her first run-in with the law. 37-year-old Jennifer Poulin facing a judge for the second time this week for a dangerousness hearing. This after she rampaged through a busy section of Springfield with her car on Friday.
It started in the parking lot outside the CVS there by the X. Firefighters received a call that an individual may be under some medical distress.
When officers arrived on the scene, they attempted to assist the woman who was apparently having a seizure behind the wheel of a car. That woman, Poulin, then put the car in reverse and drove away with, quote, extreme speed and a disregard for other vehicles.
She's just crazy, running all over the place, driving.
After allegedly smashing into multiple cars, destroying the front windows of the Caring Health Center, injuring 2 cops, and fleeing from her arrest, Poulin was finally transported to Bay State, where prosecutors say they discovered crack cocaine in her system, plus a bag of what is believed to be methamphetamine tucked under her clothing. But apparently, Poulin has former offenses in Connecticut as well.
Most concerning are the events that took place apparently in Connecticut on May 23rd, 2024, where she's charged with reckless driving, engaging in a police pursuit, reckless endangerment first degree.
Poulin was also charged with those same crimes on June 1st in Connecticut. Now, her defense claiming that she was not in her right mind from her seizure, which she had a medical history of having.
Your mind, your body, it is very disoriented. There is a loss of memory. There is a loss of understanding. Unfortunately, Your Honor, as a reasonable person would do, the fear kicked in and she fled.
The Commonwealth then responding,
she's making willing, conscious decisions to get behind the wheel of a car, willingly, consciously putting lives of everyone else out there at risk. History of seizures, she could seize at any point now. And she's compounding that with her choice of using narcotics.
They also say her license was suspended and the vehicle she was driving was unregistered, uninsured, and had license plates that did not match the car.
The Commonwealth cannot think of a single condition that would assure the safety of this community or the community of Connecticut.
In the meantime, Poulin is being held at the Western Mass Women's Correctional Center in Chicopee. Poulin's next step is to attend a status update hearing on February 14th, which she does have the right to appeal in Superior Court. We'll keep you updated as the case continues to unfold. For now, reporting in studio, Madison Lisowski for Western Mass News.
Tomorrow morning when you wake up, temps are going to be in the upper